slide. Thank you very much and greetings from South Africa. My name is Trevor Mulaudzi. I am a lecturer and a teacher at the University of Limpopo, the northern province near Zimbabwe. And I teach sustainable sanitation and water management. And today I want to discuss the problems with current approaches to on-site sanitation as experienced in, for example, Baranuka High School in Phalaborwa, where things are not going well. It's because of these problems which I want to talk about. And in 2016, together with some colleagues, we formed Limpopo Sanitation Association. So that is a group of concerned citizens and academics and members of the public whom we meet frequently to discuss all these challenges we're facing in our communities. Can we go to the next slide? Next one. On-site sanitation. No, you are too much fast. Go back once more. One more, yes. No, you ran away. Yes. On-site sanitation systems, such as pit latrines and septic tanks, etc., do form an incomplete barrier between users and the environment. Nutrients and pathogens contaminate water sources, hence posing a health risk, which we sourced from Conrad in 2007. So what we are saying here, on-site sanitation like pit latrines, like septic tanks, they will always leak into the groundwater system and pollute the water with nutrients and pathogens. So our biggest concern is that we must encourage communities to have, I want to try and reduce, I'm okay now. And reduce the pathogens. For example, on this picture, you see a sketch of a pit latrine, which has got a place for retaining the solids, whose liquids infiltrate into the groundwater level, and we put pathogens and nutrients which will gravitate towards the water source, and same time we will have things like wells and boreholes that will get water from the polluted groundwater, and then we spread disease. Next, please. So in pit systems, which are abundant in many parts of the world, the toilet does not form a barrier between human beings and excreta. Yet this barrier is incomplete. Pit latrines are mostly designed to retain solids and infiltrate liquids. When liquids infiltrate, nutrients and waste pathogens also infiltrate. If there are large settlements, or if the toilets are built too close to water sources, this can lead to severe pollution of ground and surface waters, as shown in the picture you saw on the previous slide. And the consequences are high prevalence of waterborne disease like diarrhea in children and many other diseases, especially with the COVID, because we are also being taught now that the COVID virus is being found in the pit latrines, is being found in wastewater treatment plants, is being found anywhere. So we are saying we have to have a very secure environment to contain our excreta in a safe way, especially if we will go the route of dry sanitation like is being done in Finland, and Zambia will be starting soon. Next slide, please. The disadvantages of conventional central systems in South Africa. Because here in South Africa, there is a problem that our government, when it came into power in 1994, they had assumed that having a flush toilet is the ultimate solution. So they promised people, even in the villages, that they will have flush toilets. But they forgot to look at the problem of water supply. There is not enough water supply to go to all the villages which are scattered all over the country. And at the same time, the cost of laying down pipes is huge, that ultimately at the end of the day, the government couldn't deliver that. And the wastewater treatment plants, the conventional ones, are normally found in cities and townships and all that. And they always pollute the water downstream, which are going through villages, in rivers, dams, and lakes. So we mix different wastewater streams. In centralized systems, wastewater from a range of different sources, domestic, industrial, street runoff, gets mixed up, and thus creating a wastewater with properties that are hard to handle for any treatment plant, even high-tech ones. The range of different harmful substances, heavy metals, chemical and medical residues contained in such wastewater makes it also very difficult to recycle it. If we can look at the chemical society we live in a day, we use a lot of chemicals in our households, like soaps, toothpaste, laundry soap. And when you go outside the home, you see that there is a lot of rubbish in the streets. And when it rains, stormwater drains are clogged and they end up carrying rubbish into our river courses. So it will be very difficult for the wastewater treatment plant to get rid of all those substances using just simple products like chlorine and lime. And we have to be very careful and make our people aware that these days we live in a chemical society, which is very, very harmful. And we must teach people, when you shop, look at the products you are shopping and make sure that they are not going to pollute the environment. And also, we are trying to teach people how to manage gray water at home. So gray water mustn't go into our wastewater systems. Next slide, please. The other disadvantage of centralized systems is the water use. Centralized systems use a large amount of water, not only for flushing the toilet, but they also has to be certain minimum water flow to ensure that the gravity operated sewers work. Water is getting even more scarce resource. According to the EU 2006 Human Development Report, It says the scarcity at the heart of the global water crisis is rooted in power. There are people with power that they own all the waters, big farming corporations, big industries. So they take all the water from everybody, and it increases poverty and inequality. But the problem is not the physical availability. In other words, there would be enough water for everyone if it would be used wisely. Using water to flush toilets is definitely not the most sensible solution. That's why we're promoting dry sanitation here in South Africa. We talk about it to the municipalities. We talk about when we're teaching, we teach our students that let's go different system. If a flush toilet was ever invented, it was a very, very not well thought of invention because we use clean water to clean away our excreta and then pollute the environment. So we are also campaigning for eradication of flush toilets and use dry sanitation. Next slide, please. Energy consumption. Many centralized conventional sewage system treatment are effective but very expensive and planned, usually high energy intensive, which again adds to the cost and also makes them susceptible to failure. People will fail to pay for this because you need a lot of electricity, you need a lot of power, you need the energy to move the sludge around the plant. So it becomes very expensive and there's usually breakdowns which are costly. And at the end of the day, the plant fails. And normally in poorer towns, they just abandon the plant in South Africa and it continues dumping raw sewage into our rivers and dams. Next slide, please. Another challenge is health risks. Wastewater, which is not treated and discharged into other surface water bodies, is a severe health risk to people downstream using water. We always say here that we must always remember we all live downstream. Even when you live in a city, in a beautiful house, the water which you are drinking or using for bathing or for cooking is no longer new water. It has already been used somewhere. So we all live downstream. So we must be very careful with what we do. We encourage people that boil your water before you drink. Make sure that you get into the habit of teaching children and your neighbors. That is very, very important. To boil your water, let it cool down, and then you can drink it. Because unmanaged wastewater is a vector of disease, causing child mortality and reduced labor productivity, but receives a disproportionately low and often poorly targeted share of development aid and investment in developing countries. So we are saying the issue of pollution and disease is causing labor productivity. People are always sick. The mothers are always away from work because they have to take children to the clinic or hospital. And we know many children are dying here in the villages and doesn't make noise because nobody knows about it. Next slide, please. Social acceptance. Many approaches to improve sanitary circumstances are well meant. Definitely they are well meant, but were largely planned top-down. It's from the politicians, the municipalities just decide to go and put infrastructure. They don't consult people. They don't talk to people and ask, what type of sanitation do you need? How will you maintain it? What are the hygiene matters, maintenance and operation? All those things are not taken care of because it's only from the top that things are planned, and the people in the villages just see things being put in their places. Often this can result in non-acceptance of a system, leading to the fact that the sanitation systems are not well maintained and do not function properly. We even see it here in South Africa, where the government go and put ventilated, improved latrines, and they don't tell the owners how to use them, but they also forget to tell them that people must know that they must use toilet paper, there must be a hand washing facility closer to the toilet, and the toilet must be frequently be emptied, and it must be disinfected for flies and mosquitoes and cockroaches. So the toilets smell, and we know the smell is dangerous because it's hydrogen sulfide. So at the end of the day, the system is not functioning properly, and it causes medical issues when people don't even go to the toilet anymore and they practice open defecation. Next slide, please. So we have to close the loop. Yet, the largest drawbacks of central sewer systems as they are used today in South Africa is that in most cases, they do not favor recycling of resources and thus closing the loop. Water, often groundwater, enters the water distribution system and is essentially discharged into surface water, leading to groundwater depletion. And nutrients, which essentially come from the soil, are discharged into waterways, leading to soil depletion on the one hand and eutrophication on the other hand. We are always saying food we eat comes from the soil. After eating it and excreting it, we must treat it, we must sanitize it, we must make soil conditioners and compost and retain it to the soil so that our country doesn't turn into a desert. There are many dusty places here because people year after year, they're just planting, eating, and dumping their excreta into the water instead of back into the soil. Next screen, please. That's what we are trying to say here. What is sustainable sanitation? Like I said in the beginning, I teach sustainable sanitation and water management. That how do we protect ourselves against disease and not pollute water? And we say wastewater should not be considered as a waste, but as a valuable resource. As you can see on the screen here, at the center of the screen, we see our residential areas, the cities, the towns, the townships. We always need the nutrients and water and energy, which gets into our homes, but there is no nutrient recovery, there's no water recovery, and we end up with groundwater depletion, water pollution, low agricultural yields, and waterborne diseases. That's what we are trying to teach everybody. We try and go into the schools, we talk to the school children, we tell them these are the issues we are facing in our country. If we don't change the way we do things, we are going to be poorer and poorer and poorer. because we will be running short of clean water. We will be very sick. There will be no enough food for everybody because we just use and throw away. No recycling at all. Next slide, please. Sustainable sanitation. We say sustainable sanitation aims at overcoming these drawbacks. It is not a certain technology. We don't say it is a particular technology, but an approach, which means it's a psychological issue, an approach with certain underlying principles. There are a number of technologies that can be used to make sanitation and wastewater management more sustainable. The term sustainable sanitation in principle denominates the same as ecological sanitation, though the latter has a stronger focus on source separation. Separation of our excreta and urine at home, teaching people how to look after that, getting rid of the smells, how to sanitize it, how to treat it, how to return it into their gardens, urine, how to treat urine at home and use it as a fertilizer. Those are the things, the technologies are there. We have used them in some areas. We have shown people how they work, but the problem is advocacy. Advocacy is very expensive. For example, here at our university, we've got about 25,000 students. And if I want to go and get hold of them, it is a huge, huge challenge. There are too many, they're very scattered, including the villages around. But because we are few and far apart, it's very difficult for advocacy. Therefore, advocacy becomes very, very expensive. And we just watch our people dying of disease and we are unable to help them. So the following aspects in the coming slides matter most. Next slide, please. Health and hygiene. Very, very complicated teaching. People don't understand hand washing. But during the COVID now, we hope people are following the government recommendation that wash your hands all the time. Once you go out to school or to the shops, when you come home, you must wash your hands with soap and warm water if you have, and also avoid just eating as you are walking because you'll buy food out there in the street and start eating without even washing your hands and give yourself disease. So this, we say the sanitation system must put an effective barrier between its user and the environment and must prevent exposure that could affect public health at all points of sanitation system, from the toilet, fire collection and treatment system, to the point of reuse or disposal and downstream pollutions. Hence, it also includes hygiene behavior. Very, very important that hygiene behavior be implemented, be taught from youngest age in our lower schools, in our primary schools, high schools, including in our universities, because we see our students don't practice proper health and hygiene. They litter at random and they hardly wash their hands, and things are just not controllable. Next slide, please. Environmental and natural resources. We must look after our environment and natural resources. In order to be sustainable, the sanitation system must protect and respect the natural environment and resources. Wherever possible, the resources contained in excreta and wastewater which energy, nutrients, and water are recycled, thereby protecting other resources, for example, by replacing fossil fuels through biogas, should use little energy, water, or other resources, for example, can be used for construction, operations, and maintenance, and should produce as little harmful emissions to the environment as possible, both liquid, solid, and gaseous. Next slide, please. Technology, maintenance, and operation. A sustainable sanitation system utilizes a technology and a mode of operation that are well adapted to local circumstances. So the local environment must tell us what technology do we need, what type of maintenance and operation must be put in place. This includes the system's functionality and the ease with which the entire system, including the collection, transport, treatment, and reuse, and or final disposal can be constructed, operated, monitored by local community and or the technical teams of local utilities who are properly trained. Next slide, please. We continue with technology and maintenance. Furthermore, the robustness of the system, that is how strong it is, its vulnerability towards power cuts, water shortages, floods, and other things, and the flexibility and adaptability of its technical elements. You rushed other elements to the existing infrastructure and to the demographic and socio-economic developments are important aspects to be evaluated. Next slide, please. We look at the finances. Very complicated. Finance must be properly arranged and utilized completely, and there must be financial capacity of the households, communities, and institutions, and includes not only cost for construction, but also a rising cost from operation, maintenance, and necessary reinvestments of the system. You can go to the next slide. So socio-cultural and institutional aspects, very, very important. A sanitation system only lasts and can be sustainable if it is appropriate and accepted by the community. Again, this includes the whole sanitation system. That is not only the toilets, but also maintenance and operation and the recharge and reuse system adopted. A sustainable sanitation system must hence be socially acceptable, convenient, respect gender issues and impacts on human dignity, consider impacts on food security. In regards to institutional aspects, it must be in compliance with the legal framework and must make for stable and efficient institutional settings. So it must be properly managed. Everybody must be involved. We always say everybody is a shareholder, everybody is a stakeholder. So we must work together because everybody needs a toilet every day, irrespective of social standing. Next slide, please. In conclusion, most sanitation systems have been designed with these aspects in mind. But in practice, they are failing far too often because some of the criteria are not met. In fact, there is probably no system that is absolutely sustainable. The concept of sustainability is more of a direction rather than a stage to reach. Nevertheless, it is crucial that sanitation systems are evaluated carefully with regard to all dimensions of sustainability. Next slide, please. The last, which will be the last one. That will be the summary. To summarize, sustainable sanitation is a simple approach. The most basic principle is that it considers wastewater and excreta not as waste, but as a resource. That sanitation has to be socially acceptable and should be as economically viable as possible. There is no one-fits-all approach. Rather, the most adequate solution has to be found from case to case, considering climatic conditions, water availability, agricultural practices, social cultural preferences, affordability, safety, and technical prerequisites, just to make a few. And we also encourage that our local politicians in the municipalities, in the provincial governments, in national governments, they all also need to be taught about sustainable sanitation, because you find that when you talk to them and you talk about the challenges, for example, a smelly pit latrine, which produces toxic gases like hydrogen sulfide, you find that they had never had any understanding of such a thing. They never knew about it. We always say our people die because of lack of knowledge. So as World Toilet Association, as all the colleagues sitting at this forum, let's campaign for sustainable sanitation, proper hygiene, and proper hand washing. Let's talk about basic things about toilet, the use of toilet paper, all other things, the eradication of flies and mosquitoes and cockroaches. Let's teach people. People just don't know what they should be knowing. Like I said earlier, advocacy is the most expensive exercise. I thank you very much. Sorry, you couldn't see my face anymore because I just somehow got lost. I don't know what happened. All along, I was seeing everybody presenting. I thank you, and I say, God bless, stay safe, let's look after ourselves. Thank you very much, everybody.